Good evening. Welcome to Investigator News. And this is basically we're not doing the lifestyle news tonight. We are doing part two. Uh, and this is very important because I want everybody to realize what's going on in the world and be able to explain it very simply of what we're looking at with the political elite. Now I do have William on the phone. So, William, hello.
Hello.
So, William will
What?
have his own show in the next hour, but I did keep him on board so he can listen, so that if he has something to add to uh, what I'm talking about tonight, he can jump in and mention. Now, tonight, with part two, I want to. Um, I want to identify with what is going on with the World Economics Forum. And I did mention that. Now, to go over what I did with part one, we did the exposure of Fauci with AZT and um, the AIDS epidemic with the Clintons being really a part of it and Fauci. Now, tonight, I want to get into what we've seen. Um, um, I, I should have had this all set up, um, but um,
So, Ellie's been real busy with her sister for the last hour, and so she's a little bit trying to get back on track. She was telling me over the phone here a little bit.
so when we're looking at um, now, so let's look at Obama. Um, and we're moving into the Obama years. If you watch part one, you see we went through Hillary Clinton, we went through Fauci, we went through Bush. Now we're into uh, the Obama years with Biden. And what we've seen with Obama, now a lot of people know um, um, with Obama that we really didn't really know that he was a scandal. That everybody thought we were scandal free. Now I would have went for Obama because I thought, how awesome is it to have a black president? And that's how I kind of felt. But then we started looking at the State Department email, an effort to evade federal open records. Um, now, we were looking at the IRS, where he was going after the Catholic churches. Then we had Fast and the Furious. And everybody um, uh, understand that everybody thought that through the media, which the media had tried to direct our attention to something else, that we didn't realize that he was notified 5 times about Fast and Furious and tracing them to the Mexican cartels, and that uh, we had the border patrol agent Brian Terry that was shot. Now there wasn't just that; there was at least a dozen um, border patrol that had been assassinated by the cartel with these guns. Now IRS abuses. Um, Richard Nixon only dreamed of doing back in the days. It successfully targeted political opponents. Now, I had a friend that worked for the IRS, and she said when they went after the Catholic churches, it wasn't just the Catholic churches, it was all religious organizations. Then we seen Benghazi. Or what about Black Hawk Down? This was during Obama. Um, the Veteran Affairs, at least 40 U.S. veteran died waiting for appointments. Now, we seen a biggest cuts with the Veterans Affairs in history under Obama. And the reasoning for it, because he was trying to cut a lot to be able to put into the Muslims. Now, he brought so many Muslims over, and now we're looking at the Muslims very unhappy because they're going after religious freedoms. And so with Obama, we are looking also at, did he know about what Hunter Biden and the Biden administration was doing? Well, when he said, we'll give him blankets. Well, that was after the fact that Joe Biden received millions of dollars. We're even hearing billions from Iraq. And well, not Iraq, I'm sorry, Ukraine. And so this was the start of it. And it wasn't just um, the Biden administration with Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. We had um, Lindsey Graham. What was Lindsey Graham doing over in Ukraine with Leahy in 2016? And it was only to get more money to Ukraine. Now, when we moved into Iran, now Iran, um, this was really a big part of the Obama administration. And he, um, at this point, was looking at, he could, with Senator Kerry, uh, sign an agreement with Iran to be able to um, um, uh, oh boy, this is real technical. William, you might even have to help me with this one. Um, what they wanted to do was um, give them the option of um, they weren't, they were agreed upon that the United States would work out money with them, cash money, because they couldn't come up with the money for the nuclear. And so the best way to go about it would be taxation. So they taxed us, we put the money into it, and then the money went to Iran. Now, that's when Kerry went over there and started making agreements with our tax money to be able to say, no, you can't do nuclear, but we will agree that, oh boy, I wish I had my cheat sheet in here with me.
So one of the things they did was they sent C-130 with pallets of cash.
Right.
The other thing they did was Kerry went to make an agreement and started sharing American intelligence on Israel to Iran at the same time.
Do you know what? I'm going to go get my cheat sheet, William. Go ahead.
So that was like a double whammy. And at the same time, I can't remember if Kerry was Secretary of State or whether he was an attaché, but yeah, that was going on. And at the same time we're doing that, Obama's trying to pare down our military, and to be able to do that so that be able to, I don't know what the word is, use the peace dividend after the fall, of Russia. So we didn't have to have the big land forces. And so what he decided to do was to make special forces, put as much money into special forces as he could and into drones and things like that.
Right.
And then operational tempo, meaning that our guys are going in for 4, 5, 7, tours into Iraq and Afghanistan. They'd bounce back and forth. And, this didn't just include our special forces and those guys. That included our doctors. That included a whole bunch of State Department people. It was a big mess.
Yeah. Now, what I wanted to bring up was, now Kerry was Secretary of State. Hillary was the head of the State Department. And so when we were looking at Iran and how we were going to fund them, we told them they could not. Any money we sent was not to be nuclear, and they promised so. But William, Iran, they're not going to agree to anything. That was a joke. And
so you send the money, and they say, okay, we're not going to use it for nuclear, right? They shut that money over to palace protection, all that business, upgrading the palace, maybe helping the people a little bit, and then they just take the monies they would have spent, right, on the one area and moved it over and did the nuclear.
Right. And so really,
so when do both things.
What they were telling the American people was, they're not going to spend it on nuclear. They're going to spend it on peace operations. And that's what I went to get my notes. And then
took their other peace operations and spent it on nuclear.
Bingo. Yeah. And we should have known that. And I believe Kerry knew about it. With now was it his daughter or his son that was married to someone in Iran? And I only believe that happened because he was going to be more connected with Iran for these.
So his wife is Brazilian, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Heinz family, right? And I believe it was her son that was married to a part Brazilian Iranian nationals. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So we had that. We had Kerry connected to Iran through marriage. Then we had Kerry connected to Iran. Then we had Hillary with the State Department connected to Iran. And then the Biden administration. Now, what I want everybody to realize is when we have a president of the United States, usually the vice president is foreign affairs. And that's why I really, more and more, I say the president needs to be savvy to foreign affairs, because this is where.
Ellie, that's in a Democratic administration. In a Republican administration, the president handles foreign affairs. But typically in the Democratic administration is they hand that off to the vice president so they can build up their bona fides for the next election cycle when the president has met their 2-year limit.
Yeah.
Right. 2-term limit.
But and then when we worked into the Bush administration before Obama, we started seeing that they were throwing it off on the vice presidency. And then when Obama came in office, I really thought this was going to be the great the presidency that we would see all of this stop. But lo and behold, we had Obama as a Marxist and fascist, and he was huge with Marxism and bringing in socialism. And we knew he was part of socialism when he brought in Obamacare, because that is a socialist medical organization that would bring in. And then when he went after Trump, now everybody keeps thinking it was Biden that went after Trump or Mueller. It was Obama. And what he did was when he went to the FISA courts, when he wanted to spy on um, um, Trump, what it did was he opened it up so he could spy on everybody. And that's where we started seeing um, China being brought in and China being able to take a look at what the American people were doing. It wasn't about so much Obamacare as it was Obama working with China. And everybody thought, oh, Joe Biden's the one that would work with China. No, this was Obama.
So they federalized the information system so that all of our medical information could be tracked nationally. That was one part of it. The other part of it was, that was written in Boston by Romney originally, and
Yes.
then it was adopted nationally by Obama.
But
so it came from both rhinos and the Democrats.
Right. The Democrats have always wanted socialism brought in with uh, fascism, Marxism. And Obama was the perfect choice because he was about Marxism. And Dinesh D'Souza.
Remember, Obama was schooled in Indonesia, so he's an Asiatic. He's not
Right.
Okay.
Well, not only that, but Hawaii, and then looking into his father. And then when he looked into his father was Marxism, fascist, wanted to bring in socialism into the United States. So he was only following what his father wanted.
Right.
Right. Then that's through, if you guys watch Obama with Dinesh D'Souza, because that really explains a lot. And so then now that we have caught up, um, um, I'm trying to get, um, um,
when Obama was originally running, he was running against Romney, so we really didn't have a choice about what was going to happen as far as Obamacare. It had just been called Romney Care.
Right. And so was Romney, when we look at Romney and Kerry and them, or even so many times, William, I say, it's not about the man, it's the plan. And what I'm trying to explain to the viewers that this plan has been in effect for a very long time.
You have to understand that when you get a Democratic administration, all right, you're getting European-centric individuals. They're more interested in Europe than they are in you.
Right.
I mean, how many times have we gone and cleaned up after a French military effort that has failed with a Democratic administration? It's mind-boggling how many times.
Yeah. And
well, they care more about what the European leaders think than they care about what the American people think.
Right.
And that's just been typical with most Democratic administrations. And that's why you saw, Hillary, we did whatever, whoever we wanted, and then this big push and the reset, and Hillary's over with staying the night with Putin over at the dacha, and just all this stupidity.
Well, yeah, because they were hoping that with Putin and socialism, the new socialism, that he would agree to backing them up on socialism. And then we move into China. It was trying to collect American DNA in hopes of controlling the future healthcare of China's test kits. And When we're talking test kits, we're talking this pandemic. So when we moved in closer to Trump, the Biden Obama administration knew that now it was now going to be turned over to China, and they would need the information. So under the Mueller investigation, when they went to the FISA courts, they had to be able to spy on American people to be able to uh, look at DNA and send DNA not only to China, but have this big realm of DNA to be able to control the people in the United States. And
And Ellie, they connected the DNA to all the information you said. To they used the DNA to connect family organizations, so they knew what the organizational structure of the entire society was. It was a whole of national information push.
right, it wasn't just China, it wasn't just us, it was globally. And how come? Because we had World Economic Forum appraising China on the DNA and control they had over their own people. And so when we started looking at it, we found out that even the White House was ramping up its response for announcing Americans once again free. And we're going to give them these test kits for any pandemic we have uh, with, uh, uh, with the information that would be sent to China. Um, and China, with its DNA, would teach us uh, how to
There's
start
something else that they
controlling.
can do with that DNA, Ellie.
Huh?
They can make DNA specific bioweapons.
Right. Oh, see what it was.
So
A lot
if
of
they
it
want to get
was
all the blue-eyed people in the United States, they can make some sort of a vector, whether it's bats or test kits or flu injections, blah blah blah. Okay, right,
right,
and take out a population.
right, and then bringing in Obamacare was the first part of socialism. And in order to have Obamacare, they need everybody's DNA. Why'd they need everybody's DNA? It was basically to track and score and show how responsible and trustworthy is not only um, the people of China, but the people in the United States. Well, what did that start? What it did was bring in a little bit of fascism, a little bit of Marxism, and to bring in the ESG. And
So
um,
that that all started way back just before World War II. We started getting postal codes. Then finally, within the 60s, we had zip codes. And then it was everybody had to have the Social Security number. And
mhm,
nobody was going to ever know what the Social Security number was. Only the Social Security Administration would ask it. But now everybody asks it. Now it's DNA and the iris scan, and it's
mhm.
endless.
Well, when we look at
It's been a long march.
what was going on with the Obama scandal, when we look at um, the State Department and open records, when we look at Fast and Furious, when we look at IRS abuses, Benghazi, you could see every aspect that Obama was doing was getting ready to push forward this ESG. And what did it now? To be able to explain ESG, folks, it's called the social credit system. A person's reputation is scored on a scale of 350 to 950. It's big data meets big brother, expanding how the government monitors and understands and ultimately controls 1.4 billion citizens, a good basically to bring in benefits for people with low scores. Because under Obama, when he looked at the world, he said, it's not fair that we are so rich. I'm going to bring down the United States and I want everybody to be equal. So Everybody it always wants to say, um, the Clintons did it, or Bush did it, or Obama did it. No, it actually started under fascism, Marxism, of with the Obama administration, that 1.4 billion citizens with good credit needed to be brought down and equalized so that, the third world countries would be equal to the United States. And the only way to do that is with a credit score. And it basically shamed uh, the middle class into thinking, yeah, we need to pay a little bit more so that the lower class can become more like us. And that's what,
That's that's where climate came about too.
right.
So they
And
were going to do carbon credits. That's how they were going to equalize it.
right. And that's what
But that
brought
didn't
in
happen.
BlackRock. Because now, when we look at Obama administration with the bankers, when he bailed them out, pretty much all of them fell under BlackRock. And you hear about BlackRock a lot because BlackRock is going to be, um, the hub for, cryptocurrency. And everybody says, well,
And Ellie,
yeah,
that BlackRock's money isn't BlackRock's. It's actually the retirements of Americans being used against them.
right. So,
It's it's the deposits of honest Americans being used against their best interest because they're trying to use an organization to funnel money into becoming a power player for this socialist agenda.
right. Because they had to bring in, when they brought, when Obama was voted for, and I really believe they pick and choose to be who's the best candidate to bring in the World Economic Forum, because it seems like now that we have a Biden administration in, we are now seeing, uh, what the World Economic is forceful on. But we have to go almost back to Obama when we were getting set up for Hillary. Because if Hillary would have made it, then we would have been, uh, where we are today the first 2 years of Hillary. Now, what would be seeing today is communism, because they had it all set up when they paid and bailed the bankers out. The What they were looking at is a socialist program, and they knew that the thing is they knew if they bailed the bankers out, they could control the bankers. They could control the stock market. They could control, um, who made it and who didn't. And now we're starting to see the banks fall. So who's going to be left? Cryptocurrency, to where they'll bring in, where there is no cash, um, being moved. It's all going to be printable money. And if we do printable money, that means, um, it's not gold back, it's not silver back. It would be they could print as much money as they want and have the
And they
American
can
people pay
stop
for it.
purchasing specific items at the point of purchase, as
Right.
well as locking down into your city so you can't travel.
Right. We know, when we're moving into, ESG. Now, if you have, um, let's say you eat at McDonald's a lot, well, they decide, you know what, you're too fat. You're not going to eat at McDonald's. They'll no longer show you anything at McDonald's. If you go to buy anything at McDonald's, it's going to block you. It is a type of control. And where do we see this control? None other than China. China does this to their people. China controls all their money, their work, and their families. And what is that? That is communism. Now, before that, it was socialism. And they had to bring.
Remember when Obama had you put that juice in your car and it would render your car useless, and then they would go to the scrapyard and you would get a benefit for buying your next car. That was all part of it too. Is paring down the amount of automobiles that were available for people to travel with.
Right. Well, now the whole thing with ESG, though, William, is when let's say we move into the ESG, and there, a lot of people don't understand this, is when we are looking at government control over our money. If they think,
It's economic, social, and governance is what ESG stands for, and they mix them all together so that they can use your money to govern you
yes,
based on their social desires.
right. And so if you need to go to the hospital and they feel, well, you don't socially, you were happy yesterday, today you're hurting, you don't need to go to the emergency room, and we're not going to cover it, nor are you going to go, because you could sit in the waiting room forever, for days. They're never going to call on you.
Or if
Why?
you don't go and weld your neighbor's door shut,
Bingo. And if your
they
neighbor,
can make
even
you
your
sick
neighbor's
as
turning you
well.
in, your boss
Right? They
turning you in,
make
your
you sick as
coworkers.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, it all goes to um, having doctors through the CDC, World Health Organization, of what we've seen up in Canada, where it takes 6, 8 months, a year to be seen. Because why? They were the original um, trial for what we would see with social medicine, and then it was the UK, and both said it takes us forever. And so what they did is they pulled in the media and they pulled in politicians to say this is wonderful. And in the
So
meantime,
when they do that, they can choose. Well, you've reached a certain age, you don't need medical care anymore, or this demographic we don't like, and so we're going to let them pass on.
and it's a
It,
young,
it,
it's a super old. And if you're super old, there's no reason that you should be around because you can't contribute to globally. So they'll cut you off. And as so um, when we are now looking into um, getting past um, global medicine that Obama brought in with the Obamacare. And then we seen Trump come in. Well, Trump blocked Hillary. And when Hillary just assumed that she would win, it would have, what we're seeing today would have been during the Hillary administration. So, what would we be seeing is communism right now. Because from socialism to communism only is about 2 years. And so Trump did interfere in their plan for socialism and communism. Now, I have always looked into who is his advisors. And more, I'm starting to see and hear from my own sources that Obama is one of the advisors to bring socialism, to turn it to communism, to join up with the World Economic Forum, to bring in the One World Organization. Now, William, the thing I had to go on was, wait a minute now, this is Obama Hillary, and we know that the Bush was talking about the one world order back in the early '80s, '70s.
now, the rhinos are the same thing. Okay, they look towards the royals and the power players outside the United States. You know, the Lindsey Grahams and the Romneys of the world.
Right.
And the conservatives look at the people of the United States, and that's just, look what we listened to over the weekend, where the former Arkansas governor was, you know, don't have anything to do with Trump, or
Asa Hutchinson.
these.
Now, yeah, see, that's what I was just going to bring up next, so William, is
not inward.
When we look at when Arkansas was looking at a form of communism here, and they were going to bring in Asa Hutchinson, it didn't help because we had uh, Jim Guy Tucker and Huckabee that came in and stopped all of it.
Never trust any guy that can't open his eyeballs.
Right.
You can't see a guy's eyes, don't trust him.
Not only was William Barr, but Asa Hutchinson, they were put in power during the Clinton administration to bring in socialism, and they would be the ones that would say, we're Republicans, and to deceive the Republican Party into voting for what is best for our country. Look at Venezuela, look at the Netherlands, look at the UK, look at all of this that is running so smooth. Canada with their health care, socialized health care. It's all beautiful. And with the media, like what we've seen here, the media bought and paid for would only distribute what it was said to them. And with like Operation Mockingbird, me and you know about, repeat the same thing over and over. Let's build back better under Obama. Not only Obama, but then when we moved into the Biden administration, what did they say? Build back better. And I thought, okay, yeah, that's kind of a Trump thing. But when I started,
trust you can change, you can trust in.
Right.
Why do we have to change?
What do we have to trust if everything's okay? Because even when Obama came into office, everything was going really good. The economy was starting to roll. And when that was going on, he took the credit for it. Look at how wonderful the country is. Look at what I've done. It was only to get him a secure vote for his second term. Now, when we look into a second term, he knew about Fast and Furious, what Eric Holder did. He knew about Benghazi and Hillary Clinton with the State Department and John Kerry. And he knew.
And also they decided they were gonna take out, it was either 7 or 11 Islamic countries.
Right.
They were going to overthrow.
And you know when
the entire what do they call it? Islamic Spring or whatever.
Arab Spring.
Arab Spring.
Mm-hmm. And so that's what that was about, all the way to Benghazi, and everybody, it never made sense. But what makes sense is it was bringing in socialism, Marxism, and there was close to 1,000 Antifa at Arab Spring to start the protests. And so when they came back and we had the end of Obama, he was supporting bringing the Muslims in. And the Muslims were the better way to go, because he thought, because now we're finding different, because now the Muslims are saying, we're not about this. But when he brought them in, it was to control the Christian churches and to tear down the Christian churches and everybody become Muslim. When it didn't happen, they attacked the Catholic churches.
Or be a part of the world organization of churches and under their control.
And see, everybody thought, oh, Obama did well for our country. No, you have to realize Obama was just another part of bringing in what they've always wanted since 1900. It never should have been a two-party rule, according to them. And when you start looking into elections, you start seeing that uh, the conservatives under the Constitution with Thomas Jefferson, and even um, um, quite a few of those that signed on the Constitution, but even going into the Civil War, we're looking at we didn't want communism, we wanted freedom and liberty. And so that's what Abraham Lincoln was looking at. And you wouldn't believe, William, you know, Abraham Lincoln only won by a few electorals because they were trying,
Yeah.
they were saying, oh, it's a fake, it's a farce, it's corrupt. And
That's
how many
that's why
times?
the South needed from the Union is because they said the election wasn't.
Right.
Uh,
And they said it wasn't right, something was corrupt. And then, when I'm standing in line to vote in the 80s, uh, and they announced the Clintons had won, we hadn't even voted. California hadn't even voted. It was 7 o'clock. The polls were closing at 8, and there was a line of like hundreds. And they were going to let us vote up to 9 o'clock, but they cut us off, said the Clintons won. And we were all
the
like,
truth is, the choice was meaningless because both sides were part of the same thing.
yeah. And come to find out, what we found out in Arkansas was when, and this is, it really goes for Fast and Furious. When Fast and Furious, Eric Holder was told 5 times that these guns were being sold to the Mexicans, and he ignored it. And I always wondered why. And it was right about the time the Clintons had to quit the guns for the cocaine. And when the guns for the
Yep.
cocaine, see, it started with guns for money with Bush. Bush cut it off, said no more. The Clintons continued it, guns for the cocaine. And then it was cut. Then Eric Holder came in with Obama, and it was guns to the cartels for we don't know. It's so
Well,
covered up by the DOJ, the State Department, the FBI, and the CIA of what the guns, what we got paid for. But we were sending them ARs and AKs. And then we're going to say, then when they got discovered, it was like, okay, we're going to quit. No more guns. But we're finding out in Arkansas they have moved um, the airstrips, and we're still doing guns for cocaine, crack, fentanyl, and it's just coming in a different route. It's still going to Chicago, it's still going to New York. We're still got the fentanyl problem. So it never quit. They just covered it up. And what for? What for? Um, and yeah, we'll probably get onto it in the next show or two, um, because we're kind of running out of time. But I wanted to bring in the whole Obama era to show you that when he came in, now he was a crack addict in college. He was nobody, but they found him, they brought him in, and they said he's a perfect man for the job. Why? Because he's like Biden. He could be,
he was also attached to that guy in Chicago that wrote the book. I can't. Bill Ayers. So
uh-huh.
you got Bill Ayers. He's
And he
sucking
was
down
Marxism,
drugs.
fascism to
He
bring
was
in
he was a
socialism.
perfect CIA pickup.
Yeah, he was the best man to bring in because he when it was Karl Marx, he loved Karl Marx. This
And he
is
was articulate. He could speak.
and D'Souza, even with Obama's America, go watch it, folks, because he shows you. He even turned his back on his own family. He became rich, and his brother sitting there poor in Africa, and he's like, nothing to see there. Why? Because his brother knew what a fake he was. And if it wasn't for Dinesh D'Souza, we wouldn't have known. But, he got blocked. And you know what Obama did? He put him in jail. Oh, no, you're not going to spread this. And so when we move from Obama into Trump, because we can't really look at the Trump years because it isn't about what the world economic was about. It's not about socialism. It isn't about the one world order that me and you have been talking about that we need to let the viewers know about. But if they don't know how crooked Obama was, how crooked Hillary was, Kerry, and a half a dozen. There's at least
And
20.
remember, the Bushes and Kerry were all part of Skull and Bones. They were all
Yes,
tapped.
yes,
So that's the East Coast power. Then you have the Chicago power, which was the Chicago mob tied to the fascists, right? And they came down into Arkansas and made their way towards DC. And then we had the LA faction, right?
mm-hmm.
We had a group of people trying to become president out of LA. So we had LA, we had the East Coast, we had Chicago, but they're all of them involved in the same organizations.
Yeah. Well, it's only because, you know, um, when we seen, and it goes beyond. It goes all the way back to JFK when he tried to warn us that this was happening, and about Cuba, the Bay of Pigs, and communism, because we had protesters saying we want communism, all the way into 1990s from
If you look at the
Kennedy.
presidents, our Republican presidents just were they would just be apologetic for the Democrats, and only if we had somebody that was a Democrat that then became conservative and then became president did we end up with a movement towards caring for the people. And that's what happened with Reagan. That's what happened with
Yeah.
Trump.
And so when we get to Obama, the biggest thing with Obama is, you remember they tried to send out National Guard to start taking some guns, and they found out that wasn't going to work. They had to figure out a way to shut the country down. And what better way? It wasn't during. They assumed Hillary would win, and what they would bring in is the next pandemic. And as how I started part one was to show Fauci with the Clintons, the Bushes, Mueller, all of them knew about this, that AZT would be safe and effective. They could stick to one drug. They could bring in a pandemic that would shut the country down. But AIDS didn't. Now, when we're looking at what we seen during Trump administration, they found something. And that was with China. How'd China get in this? The World Economic Forum. So, William, I'll let you finish up, and then I'm probably going to close out the show and get on to yours, because this is the tidbit. We're still scratching. And what I have for tomorrow is explosive.
All right, let's just move on because I've got news and that happened over the weekend, and we'll talk about that a little bit, and then get ready for tomorrow.
Yeah, because we made it through Obama, because I want to take everyone through this timeline. So what they see today, they understand how socialism, communism, the World Economic Forum with China, Russia, and Iran is what is going on. So, folks, come back tomorrow, and we'll get into part three. This, like I said, I'm going to go through the decades. I'm going to go through the presidents. I'm going to go through pandemics and wars and how they planned on socialism to communism to world economic for world one world order to make us all equal. And you know what? We will own nothing and we'll be okay with
Ellie,
it. Yeah.
towards the end, I'd like to speak to what what that final leader is going to look and be like.
Hmm. So,
they're working on that right now socially, so you will be able to accept him, but he's not going to be like us.
right. And you know, I want to. So basically, the ESG today, what we discussed today, is controlling our money, or what you're able to do, what you're able to buy, what you're able to spend, where you'll live, uh, your family structure, and pets you can own. So, all right, folks, come on back tomorrow. Tomorrow, and we will continue. And the next show will be William with news. And if he wants to even go on with this and has things to say in his show, he can. Because I know William has a lot to say. I just don't want you to go beyond just yet, William. If you want to stick with Obama and say a few things in your show, um, you can. And anything before Obama and the Clintons and all the way back to JFK. Why do you think we got a Kennedy right now saying they're bad? These are people that are wrong to run the country, and they have went rogue. And that's all Kennedy is trying to say right now. Whether he makes it as president or not, folks, it's a warning. And I would say listen to him. And if he don't make it, that's okay. But he is warning us of what they did to not only his family, his uncle, his dad, but to the country and the world. And it's to bring in fascism, Marxism, and the one world order. All right, folks, thanks for watching. Come back tomorrow for part 3. This isn't going to be an easy 2, 3, 4 parter. I'm going to go until you guys totally understand why this country is falling apart and that we're leaning towards a communist country and the one world order. Uh, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. And here in about 5 minutes, you'll have William and William's show. So take care and God bless. Come back tomorrow and watch more. Thank you.